Tyler Reed had lost track of time somewhere around day 1000. In the gray walls of Block 7 at the Corinthian Maximum Security Station, counting days felt pointless. The alien guards barely glanced at him anymore when they made their rounds. To them, he was just another number in their system. Prisoner 804. That's what the computer called him. No trial record. No listed crime. No release date. Just a human who had been locked up so long that even the station commander had probably forgotten he existed. His cell measured 10 feet by 8 feet. The gravity was set higher than Earth normal, a deliberate choice by the Corinthians to keep prisoners weak and tired. Most inmates stopped fighting it after a few months. They spent their days lying on their bunks, staring at the ceiling, waiting for nothing. Tyler had taken a different approach. Every single morning he dropped to the floor and did push-ups until his arms trembled. He ran in place until sweat soaked through his prison uniform. He did squats and lunges and anything else he could think of to keep his body from giving up. The guards thought he was crazy. He'd heard them talking about it in their clicking language when they thought he couldn't understand. Maybe they were right. Maybe staying strong in a place designed to break you was a kind of madness. But Tyler figured if he stopped moving, stopped trying, he'd disappear completely. He'd become just another ghost haunting these metal corridors. 23 years. That's how long he'd been here. 23 years of the same gray walls, the same stale air, the same protein paste they called food. He'd been 28 when they brought him here. Now he was 51, and the only mirror in his cell showed a stranger with gray streaks in his hair and lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. He was on his knees fixing the water dispenser when everything changed. The thing broke constantly, spitting out warm, metallic-tasting liquid when it worked at all. Tyler had learned how to jury-rig it over the years, using bits of wire and patience. He had his hand inside the access panel when the station went quiet. The silence hit him first. After 2 decades, you got used to the background noise. The engines humbled constantly, a low vibration you felt in your bones. The ventilation system wheezed and rattled. Boots clanged on metal walkways. All of it stopped at once, like someone had hit a massive pause button on the universe. Tyler pulled his hand out of the dispenser and stood up slowly. His heart started beating faster. In 23 years, the station had never gone silent. Never. Then the lights flickered. Once. Twice. Red emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in a crimson glow that made the cell look like something out of a nightmare. The alarm started a second later, but it wasn't the usual blaring sound they used for fights or escape attempts. This was different. This was a deep, rhythmic pulse that Tyler had never heard before. This was the sound of fear. Heavy footsteps thundered down the corridor outside. Tyler pressed his face against the small window in his cell door. He saw Captain Threll running past, his 4 eyes wide with something that looked like panic. Threll was a career prison guard, a Corinthian who'd worked Block 7 for 15 years. Tyler had never seen him move faster than a slow walk. Now he was sprinting, his emerald scales pale and washed out. "What's happening?" Tyler shouted, banging on the door. "Threll. What's going on?" The captain skidded to a stop and backtracked to Tyler's cell. All 4 of his eyes focused on the human behind the reinforced door. "Get away from the door, prisoner 804. "Something's wrong," Tyler said. "I can help. I used to work engineering before." "You'll stay in your cell," Threll interrupted, but his voice cracked halfway through. His translator unit rendered it in flat, emotionless English, but Tyler could hear the original underneath. The captain was terrified. The view screen mounted in the corridor suddenly flickered to life. Tyler had positioned his bunk years ago so he could see it through his door window. He'd spent countless hours watching whatever the guards left playing. News broadcasts, entertainment programs, anything that gave him a glimpse of the universe beyond his cell. Now it showed something he couldn't process. Ships filled the screen. Hundreds of them hanging in space around the station. But these weren't normal spacecraft. Tyler had seen plenty of ships during his years watching that screen. Corinthian cruisers with their angular designs. Human transport vessels. Merchant ships from a dozen different species. These were nothing like any of them. They were massive, easily dwarfing the prison station. Their hulls seemed to shimmer and shift, like they couldn't quite decide if they were solid matter or something else. They moved with an organic grace that made Tyler's skin prickle. As the camera panned across the fleet, he saw their shapes more clearly. Long serpentine bodies. Massive wings that seemed to fold space around them. Heads that looked almost reptilian but far too intelligent, far too ancient. "Dragons," Tyler whispered. The word came out before he could stop it, pulled from childhood memories of his grandmother's stories. Threll's head snapped toward him so fast Tyler heard his neck vertebrae crack. "You know this word?" the captain demanded. How do you know what these creatures are called? Tyler opened his mouth to answer, but every screen in the prison changed before he could speak. The camera feed vanished, replaced by a face that made his breath catch in his throat. It was scaled like the ship's but more detailed, more focused. Ancient didn't begin to describe it. This was something that had seen civilizations rise and fall. Eyes like molten gold stared out from the screen, looking at everything and nothing. When it spoke, Tyler heard two voices. The translator rendered the words in perfect standard Galactic, the language everyone in this part of space used for official business. But underneath he heard something older, something that resonated in his chest like a bass drum. Words that bypassed his ears and spoke directly to something deeper. We seek the one you call Prisoner 804, the dragon said. Its voice rolled through the station like thunder. Bring him to your landing bay within the next rotation, or we will reduce this facility to its component atoms. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The silence that followed was so complete Tyler could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. Threll turned slowly to stare at him. Tyler stared back through the small window. 23 years of being nobody. 23 years of being a number in a computer system. 23 years of being so thoroughly forgotten that even he sometimes forgot who he'd been before. And suddenly, impossibly, he was somebody that creatures from ancient myths wanted to meet. I don't understand, Tyler said slowly. His voice sounded strange in his own ears. I'm just a prisoner. I'm nobody. You are Tyler Reed of Earth, the dragon said, and Tyler felt his knees go weak. The creature had heard him somehow, across the void of space, through the station's walls. Son of Rebecca. Grandson of Margaret. Last living heir of the Treaty of Flames. We have searched for you across 900 star systems for 43 years of standard time. We have found you at last. Tyler gripped the edge of his door window to steady himself. His grandmother's stories crashed through his memory. Late nights when he was small, sitting on her porch while she told him about dragons and ancient promises. About humans and dragons making a pact before humanity left Earth to explore the stars. He'd thought they were fairy tales, the kind of stories grandmothers told to make the universe seem more magical than it really was. The treaty expired when your grandmother died, the dragon continued. We honored its terms. We waited as promised. We gave humanity time to establish themselves among the stars without interference. But the treaty contained a clause. Should any of her bloodline call for aid, we would answer. Should any of her bloodline be imprisoned without justice, we would come. I never called anyone, Tyler said. His voice barely worked. I didn't know how. I didn't even know you were real. The dragon's expression shifted. Tyler would have sworn it smiled, though the expression on that massive scaled face was nothing like a human smile. You maintained your honor for 23 years in a place designed to destroy it. You helped other prisoners when you had nothing. You taught them patience and dignity. You fixed their broken things and expected nothing in return. You never surrendered what makes you human. That, Tyler Reed, was the call. That was the signal we have been watching for all these years. Around the station the dragon ships began to move. They flowed through space like schools of fish, like flocks of birds, like nothing Tyler had ever seen. Beautiful and terrible in equal measure. The Corinthian Empire violated the Accords of Sentient Rights when they imprisoned you without trial or record, the dragon said, and now its voice had gone hard as diamond. You were detained because you witnessed their illegal mining operations in the Terran Reserve. You saw their crimes and they tried to bury you in bureaucracy and forgotten cells. They chose poorly. Threll was backing away from Tyler's cell. The captain's weapon hung forgotten on his belt. His scales had gone almost white. Captain, Tyler said quietly. The single word stopped the Corinthian in his tracks like an invisible wall had appeared. I think you need to open this door right now. For a long moment nothing happened. Tyler could see Threll's translator working, could see the captain processing what was happening. Then, moving like a man in a dream, Threll reached for his control pad. The lock on Tyler's cell disengaged with a heavy click that echoed down the corridor. Tyler pushed the door open. It swung outward with a creak of hinges that hadn't moved in 23 years. He stepped over the threshold into the corridor, his legs steady despite everything. Despite the impossibility. Despite the fear and confusion and the sheer cosmic absurdity of what was happening. Your transport is waiting, Your Majesty, the dragon said from every screen in the prison. We have much to discuss. Your throne has been empty for too long. Your people need you whether they know it yet or not. Tyler walked down the corridor toward the landing bay. Other prisoners pressed against their cell doors to watch him pass. He heard whispers in a dozen languages, felt their eyes on his back. Behind him, Threll's communicator exploded with frantic calls from the warden demanding to know what was happening. Through the viewport ahead, Tyler could see one of the dragon ships descending toward the station. It moved with impossible grace, its form shifting and flowing like liquid metal and ancient dreams made solid. Tyler Reed, prisoner 804, kept walking toward whatever impossible future was waiting. After 23 years of having nothing, he figured he had nothing left to lose. The transport that arrived for Tyler wasn't any kind of spacecraft he recognized. It was alive. The landing bay doors opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure, and Tyler got his first real look at what had come for him. The thing defied every rule of engineering he'd ever learned. Its hull was covered in scales that caught the harsh station lighting and threw it back in colors that shouldn't exist. Metallic silver blended into deep bronze, shifting to gold and back again as it moved. And it was moving. Not mechanically but organically. He could see it breathing, its sides expanding and contracting in a slow, steady rhythm. The dragon ship extended what might have been a wing. The appendage stretched toward the bay floor and its surface rippled, reforming itself into a ramp with stairs. The interior glowed with warm amber light, so different from the cold fluorescent glare of the prison that Tyler felt his eyes water. Two figures stood at the top of the ramp. They were humanoid in shape but clearly not human. Their features suggested something reptilian but noble too. Intelligent. They wore armor that looked ceremonial rather than functional, covered in symbols that made Tyler's head hurt if he looked at them too long. Strange thing was, part of him recognized those symbols. He'd seen them before in his grandmother's old journals, the leather-bound books she'd kept locked in a cedar chest. Both figures dropped to one knee as Tyler approached. "Your Majesty," they said together. Tyler looked behind him reflexively. The landing bay was empty except for him and these two warriors in the living ship. "I think you've got the wrong guy," he said. "I'm just—" "You are Tyler Reed of Earth," the taller figure interrupted, rising smoothly. She had golden eyes with vertical pupils like a cat. "Last of the flame bearers. Heir to the compact between Earth and the Dragonflight. I am Commander Lisa. This is Lieutenant Brian. We've been searching for you since your grandmother passed away 12 years ago. It took us 6 months to find your trail once we knew where to look." The Corinthians buried their illegal detention records deep. Tyler climbed the ramp on legs that felt like rubber. His muscles, kept strong through years of exercise, still protested after the adrenaline of the last hour. Inside the ship, everything felt warm and alive. The walls had a gentle pulse to them like a heartbeat. He could feel a presence surrounding him, ancient and patient, aware of him in ways he didn't understand. "Please sit," Lisa gestured to what looked like a bench. As Tyler approached, it flowed upward from the floor itself, adjusting its shape to fit his body. "We have about an hour before the Corinthian government decides whether to negotiate or be destroyed. We should use that time. You need to understand what you've inherited." The ship lifted off so smoothly Tyler barely felt it. No rumble of engines, no vibration through the deck. One moment they were in the bay, the next they were rising through the station's launch corridor toward open space. Lisa waved her hand and a holographic display appeared in the air between them. Tyler saw Earth, but not the Earth he remembered from 43 years ago when he'd left to work in the Outer Rim. This Earth had markings on it, symbols and territories he didn't recognize. "Your grandmother, Margaret Reed, was the last keeper of the treaty," Lisa began. She manipulated the display and it zoomed out, showing Earth's moon, then Mars, then the whole solar system. "Centuries ago, before your people developed faster-than-light travel, dragons lived on Earth. Not as myths or legends but as guardians. Real, physical beings who shared your world." "I thought those were just stories," Tyler said quietly. "They were real," Brian spoke up from where he stood near the ship's forward viewport. "But when humanity was ready to leave Earth and explore the galaxy, a choice had to be made. Dragons travel through space differently than you do. Our method is older, stranger, and it requires preparation and time your species didn't have. We couldn't follow immediately." Lisa changed the display. Now it showed what looked like vast chambers deep underground, filled with sleeping dragons. So they entered the long dream. A form of hibernation that can last centuries. Most of the dragon flight went to sleep, waiting until humanity was established among the stars. But not all of them. A small group stayed awake. They watched from the shadows as your species built ships and colonies. They kept the treaty alive through one family. Yours. The display shifted again and Tyler's breath caught. He was looking at his grandmother, but young. Maybe 25 years old, standing next to a dragon so massive it made her look like a toy figure. They were both watching a sunset that looked too beautiful to be real. Margaret was chosen when she was 12, Lisa continued. She trained for 60 years. She learned our language, our customs, our laws. She was supposed to be humanity's voice when the dragons woke up and returned. But she fell in love with your grandfather. She had a daughter, your mother. She chose to live a normal human life, and the dragons respected that choice. The treaty was adjusted. It would pass to her heir, but only if that heir proved themselves worthy. Worthy? Tyler laughed, but it came out bitter. I've been rotting in a cell for 23 years. How is that worthy of anything? You were imprisoned unjustly and you never broke, Lisa said firmly. You kept your dignity in a place designed to strip it away. You helped other prisoners when you had nothing to gain from it. You taught them meditation techniques to handle stress. You fixed their belongings and asked for nothing in return. You stayed human when it would have been easier to become something less. The dragons were watching Tyler. Every year. Every choice you made. You passed every test without even knowing you were being tested. Through the forward viewport, Tyler saw something that made his mind struggle to comprehend it. A fleet of dragon ships hung in space, thousands of them. Each one was unique, different sizes and shapes, but all of them clearly alive. They moved with purpose, adjusting their positions like a school of fish responding to currents only they could sense. The great flight is waking up, Lisa said softly, following his gaze. The long dream is ending. Dragons are returning to the galaxy, and they need what the treaty promised. A partnership with humanity. Rule the stars together as equals. But humanity needs a voice the dragons will respect, and the dragons need a voice humanity will trust. Someone who understands both worlds. I don't know anything about ruling anything, Tyler protested. I was a survey tech. I looked at rocks and mineral deposits. I'm nobody special. You know about justice, Brian countered. You spent 23 years experiencing injustice firsthand. You know about endurance. About maintaining your principles when everything around you says to give up. You know about staying human when the universe tries to grind you down to nothing. Those are the things a leader needs to know. The largest dragon ship Tyler had ever seen opened a bay door in its side. The ship he was on adjusted course, gliding toward it like a child returning home. The mother ship's scales were like polished obsidian, black but somehow reflecting starlight in ways that created rainbows across its surface. The Elder Council is waiting inside, Lisa said. She met Tyler's eyes directly. They're going to explain everything. The throne, the responsibilities, the enemies who won't want this union between humans and dragons to succeed. They'll tell you about the challenges ahead and what it means to be a flame bearer. She paused. Then they'll ask if you accept your birthright. If you accept what your grandmother prepared you for, even if she did it through stories you thought were fairy tales. Tyler took a deep breath. His hands were shaking and he clenched them into fists to stop it. Behind him lay a cell and 23 years of being forgotten. Behind him was prisoner 804, a number in a system, a person who didn't matter to anyone. Ahead was something impossible. Terrifying. Completely insane. But also ahead was purpose. Meaning. A chance to matter again, to be someone instead of something. A chance to fix the broken system that had swallowed him and countless others like him. All right, Tyler said. Let's find out what my grandmother got me into with all those bedtime stories. The ship carried him forward into the massive vessel. The bay doors closed behind them with a sound like distant thunder. In the amber glow of the interior, Tyler Reed prepared to meet beings out of ancient myth and learn what it meant to be a king. The interior of the Elder Dragon's vessel was nothing like Tyler expected. He'd imagined something ancient and primitive, maybe stone walls with torches like a medieval castle floating in space. Instead, he walked through corridors made of living crystal that hummed with a frequency he felt in his teeth. The walls didn't just reflect light, they seemed to store it, releasing a soft glow that pulsed in time with the ship's breathing. When Tyler looked at his reflection in the crystal surfaces, he didn't just see himself. He saw flashes of his grandmother, younger than he'd ever known her, walking these same corridors decades ago. Lisa and Brian led him deeper into the ship, their footsteps silent on the crystalline floor. Tyler's prison boots squeaked with every step, a jarring reminder of where he'd been just an hour ago. The corridors curved and twisted in ways that shouldn't work geometrically, but somehow did. They passed openings that looked out onto space without any visible windows or force fields, yet Tyler could feel the atmosphere around him, warm and breathable. They finally entered a chamber so vast Tyler couldn't see the far walls. The ceiling opened directly onto space itself, though somehow the air stayed in and the cold stayed out. Stars blazed overhead, close enough that Tyler felt like he could reach up and touch them. And in the center of this impossible room, 7 dragons waited. They were massive. Too big for Tyler's brain to fully process. His eyes kept trying to find their edges and failing. These weren't the winged lizards from movies or games. They existed partially in dimensions Tyler couldn't see, their forms blurring at the edges, shifting between states of matter. Just looking at them made his head hurt. But more than seeing them, he felt them. Their presence pressed against his chest like standing next to a massive speaker playing a note too low for human ears to hear. The central dragon lowered its head toward Tyler. He still couldn't grasp its full size, but the head alone was bigger than the entire shuttle he'd arrived in. When it spoke, Tyler didn't hear it with his ears. He felt it in his bones, in his blood, in the core of who he was. Tyler Reed. Last of the Flame Bearers. We are the 7 who remember. We have waited a very long time to meet you. Tyler wanted to bow or kneel or show some kind of respect. These were clearly beings of immense power and age. But something in his gut told him they'd respect strength more than submission. So he stood straight, met that massive eye that was easily 3 times his height, and spoke plainly. I'm just Tyler. I fixed water dispensers in a prison for 23 years. I don't know what you think I am, but I'm pretty sure you've got the wrong person. A second dragon spoke, this one with scales that shifted through colors Tyler had no names for. You are your grandmother's grandson. You carry her wisdom in your blood, whether you realize it or not. More importantly, you carry her choice. What choice? Tyler asked. The central dragon's massive head tilted slightly, bringing one enormous eye level with Tyler. To remain human. We offered Margaret Reed transformation. We could have given her power, extended her life for centuries, changed her into something more than human. She refused. She told us that humanity's strength comes from their limitations. She said you burn bright and fast, and that brevity gives you something we dragons lost millennia ago. The ability to find meaning in finite time. A third dragon, smaller than the others but somehow more intense, spoke in a voice like wind through canyons. She was right. We have lived for thousands of years. We have watched civilizations rise like waves and crash back into nothing. We have seen stars born and die. But humans, you create meaning where there is none. You find hope in darkness that would crush us. You adapt and change in ways we cannot. That's why the treaty exists, the central dragon continued. Dragons bring wisdom, patience, and power accumulated over millennia. Humans bring innovation, passion, and the ability to change course quickly. Together we balance each other. Apart, we are incomplete halves of something greater. Lisa stepped forward from where she'd been standing at the edge of the chamber. The galaxy has changed dramatically in the centuries since the dragon flight entered the long dream. New powers have risen and spread across the stars. The Corinthian Empire that imprisoned you is just one of many. There's the Vex Conglomerate, the Halthar Unity, the Merchant League of Sirius. All of them expanding, conquering, exploiting weaker species. Humanity sits on the edge of known space trying to survive. Earth has colonies on 47 worlds now, Brian added. But they're fractured. Divided. There's no central government, no unified voice. Individual planets make deals with these empires, sometimes working against each other's interests. Humanity is dying slowly, piece by piece, and most humans don't even realize it's happening. Tyler felt anger flare hot in his chest. And nobody thought to mention this while I was rotting in a cell for 2 decades? We searched for you, the color-shifting dragon said, and its voice carried genuine regret. The Corinthians hid you extremely well. Their bureaucracy can be as effective as any prison wall. They buried your records under layers of false files and misdirection. By the time we unraveled their deception and found your actual location, you'd already been imprisoned for 20 years. We came as soon as we could. But why wait for me at all? Tyler demanded. If humanity's in danger, why not just wake up and help? Why did you need to find one specific person? The treaty, the central dragon said simply. Its terms are binding even on us. We cannot break our word, not even to help. We could not fully wake until a flame bearer called to us, consciously or unconsciously. Margaret never called. She chose her human life with her human family, and we respected that choice. But you, Tyler, in your cell, maintaining your dignity year after year, helping others, refusing to break, that was a call. Perhaps you didn't consciously reach out, but we felt it across the cosmos. A soul crying out for justice, not just for yourself but for all those ground down by uncaring systems. Tyler sank down onto a bench that formed from the crystal floor beneath him. His legs suddenly felt unable to support his weight. So what happens now? You expect me to wave my hand and magically unite humanity? Make everyone hold hands and sing songs together? No, the smallest dragon said, its voice surprisingly gentle. We need you to be a symbol. The treaty was clear. A human who bonds with dragons. A voice that speaks for both peoples. You don't need to rule Earth directly. They have their own governments and systems. But you can be the bridge. The keeper. The one who stands between two species and says we are stronger together than apart. And if I say no? Tyler asked. If I walk away from all this? The dragons were silent for a long moment. The only sound was the distant hum of the ship around them and Tyler's own breathing. Finally, the central dragon spoke. Then we honor your choice just as we honored your grandmother's. We return to the long dream. We sleep again. Humanity faces the galaxy alone, without our protection or partnership. The treaty ends with you. But you should know something, the color-shifting dragon added. The Corinthian Empire imprisoned you because you witnessed their crimes against humanity. You saw them stealing from Earth colonies. They will not stop at silencing one witness. They're already moving against human settlements in the Outer Rim. They view humanity as weak, divided, easy to exploit and eventually absorb. If we leave, they'll accelerate those plans. Tyler thought about the other prisoners in Block 7. Jake from Earth Colony 12, locked up for protesting unfair trade agreements. Maria from New Boston, imprisoned for refusing to hand over mining rights to her family's asteroid claim. Dozens of good people caught in the gears of empires that crushed anyone inconvenient. He thought about Earth, the home he'd left 43 years ago. The planet where his grandmother had lived and died, keeping secrets that turned out to be real. The throne, he said slowly. What does that actually mean in practical terms? What am I actually agreeing to? The central dragon's expression shifted into something that might have been approval. It means you speak with our authority. Our ships answer to your commands. Our warriors protect what you choose to protect. When you say enough, empires listen or face the consequences. You become the voice of the treaty, the bridge between dragon wisdom and human innovation. Tyler looked out at the stars visible through the impossible ceiling. He looked at the dragon fleet waiting in the darkness, thousands of ancient beings who'd crossed centuries to honor a promise. He thought about 23 years in a cell, about fixing broken things because someone needed them fixed, about staying human when it would have been easier to give up. Then I accept, he said, his voice steady despite the fear running through him. Somebody needs to fix what's broken out here. Might as well be the guy who spent 2 decades learning how to fix things with nothing but patience and wire. The 7 who remember moved closer, their massive forms surrounding Tyler in a circle. The smallest one spoke, and for the first time Tyler heard something like pride in its voice. Then let us begin the bonding. Let us show you what it truly means to be a flame bearer. There was no grand ceremony. No robes brought out on velvet cushions, no crown placed on Tyler's head, no formal speeches echoing through the chamber. Instead, the 7 who remember led him through a doorway that hadn't existed a moment before. The crystal walls simply parted, revealing a passage that seemed to exist outside normal space. Walking through it felt like moving through water, though Tyler stayed completely dry. The chamber they entered was small compared to the council room, maybe 30 feet across. But it felt bigger somehow, like the walls couldn't quite contain what was inside. Reality seemed thinner here, stretched tight over something that wanted to break through. Space itself bent around the center of the room, warping like heat shimmer on a desert highway. In the middle of it all floated a flame. Not fire as Tyler understood it. This was something older, something fundamental. White gold light that cast no shadows and radiated no heat, yet Tyler felt pressure building in his chest just looking at it. Around the flame, symbols hung suspended in the air. His eyes couldn't focus on them properly. Every time he tried to look directly at one, it slipped away to the edge of his vision. But his mind understood them somehow, recognized them at a level deeper than conscious thought. The eternal flame, the central dragon said from behind him. The source of the bond between our peoples. Margaret Reed touched this fire when she was 12 years old. It showed her who she truly was at her core. It burned away all pretense and revealed her fundamental truth. It will do the same for you. Tyler stared at the flame. Every instinct screamed at him to run. The rational part of his brain, the part that had kept him alive for 23 years in prison by being careful and cautious, was yelling that touching mysterious cosmic fire was the worst idea in human history. But another part, the part that had done push-ups every morning when giving up would have been easier, the part that had helped other prisoners when he had nothing to gain, that part stepped forward. Is it going to hurt? He asked. Yes. The color-shifting dragon answered simply. Truth always hurts. But the pain passes. The truth remains. Tyler took a deep breath. Then another. His hands were shaking and he couldn't stop them. After a moment he gave up trying. He reached toward the flame with trembling fingers. The moment his skin made contact, the universe exploded. He was standing in his cell in Block 7, but also he wasn't. He existed outside his body, watching himself from a perspective that made no sense. 23 years compressed into heartbeats. He saw himself on the first day, young and terrified and angry, beating his fists bloody against the cell door. He saw himself a year later, teaching the Corinthian guard Threll the breathing exercises humans used for stress management, helping the guard deal with anxiety about his sick daughter. He saw himself 5 years in, showing the Vex prisoner in the next cell how to read Standard Galactic, turning the alien's rage into focus and purpose. Moment after moment flashed past. Thousands of small kindnesses Tyler had completely forgotten about. Fixing a broken data pad for the elderly Syrian in Block 4. Talking down a suicidal inmate who'd given up hope. Sharing his meager food rations with prisoners who were sick and couldn't eat the standard meals. Acts that had meant nothing to him at the time, just things you did because they needed doing. But he saw how they'd mattered to others. Saw the ripples spreading outward from each small choice. Then the flame showed him Earth, but not the Earth that existed now. This was a possible future, a path that could be. He saw dragon ships hovering over human colonies not as conquerors but as protectors and partners. Human engineers worked side by side with ancient dragon scholars, solving problems neither species could handle alone. Children played together, human kids and young dragons learning from each other, building friendships that would shape the galaxy for generations. It was beautiful and it made Tyler's chest ache with longing. But the flame didn't just show him hope. It showed him darkness too. The Corinthian military fleet gathering at the edge of human space, preparing for what they called integration but what really meant conquest. The Vex conglomerate sensing weakness and moving to claim Earth colonies as resources. Other empires circling like sharks around wounded prey. He saw human settlements burning. Refugee ships fleeing into empty space with nowhere to go. The slow, grinding extinction of everything humanity had built among the stars. And woven through all of it he saw his grandmother. Young Margaret, barely older than a child, touching this same flame centuries ago. He felt her determination like it was his own. Her love for both species, human and dragon, burning so bright it hurt to witness. Her sacrifice in choosing a normal human life, knowing what it would cost, knowing she was giving up immortality and power because she believed the next generation would be stronger for not having those things handed to them. The flame asked a question. Not in words, but in pure meaning that bypassed language entirely. Will you carry this weight? Will you be the bridge between worlds knowing it might crush you? Will you love both peoples enough to make impossible choices? Will you stand in the gap when easier paths exist? Tyler's answer came from somewhere deeper than thought. Yes. Yes to all of it. Yes because someone had to. Yes because the alternative was watching everything burn. Yes because his grandmother had believed in him before he was even born, had set this path in motion trusting that her bloodline would produce someone stubborn enough and foolish enough and brave enough to walk it. The flame surged forward and Tyler screamed. He couldn't help it. Power beyond anything he could comprehend rewrote something essential at his core. He felt connections forming, threads of light linking him to every dragon in the fleet. Thousands of consciousnesses brushed against his own. Ancient patience that had watched continents drift. Deep wisdom accumulated over millennia. The capacity for both terrible destruction and infinite protection. All of it flowing into him, through him, becoming part of who he was. But through it all he remained himself. Still human. Still Tyler. Still the guy who'd spent 2 decades fixing water dispensers because people needed clean water. The flame hadn't transformed him into something else. It had illuminated what he already was, polished it, strengthened it, but left the core untouched. When he opened his eyes, he was on his knees on the crystal floor. His throat was raw from screaming. His whole body trembled with exhaustion. The flame was gone, or rather, it had relocated. He could feel it now, burning steady in his chest, warm and terrible and absolutely right. The 7 who remember bowed their massive heads, a gesture of respect Tyler felt rather than fully saw. Rise, flame bearer. Rise, voice of the treaty. Rise, Tyler Reed, king of the threshold between worlds. Tyler stood on shaking legs. He felt different. Not stronger physically, his muscles were still sore and tired. Not smarter, his mind still worked the same way it always had. But more connected. He could sense the dragon fleet spread out around the elder ship. Feel their readiness, their hope, their determination. He could sense something else too, fainter but definitely there. Human consciousness scattered across dozens of colony worlds. Isolated. Afraid. Hoping for something better but not believing it could happen. I can feel them, Tyler whispered. All of them. Dragons and humans both. Lisa appeared at his side carrying a coat. Not royal robes or ceremonial armor, but something practical. Military style, deep blue fabric with silver embroidery that seemed to move and shift like living flame when the light hit it right. The bond works both ways, she explained as Tyler slipped it on. You can sense every dragon through the treaty connection. But your grandmother did something extraordinary. She modified the flame to include human consciousness too. You'll never be truly alone again, Tyler. But you'll also never have complete privacy. Every strong emotion from thousands of beings will brush against your awareness. The coat fit perfectly, adjusting itself to his frame like it had been made specifically for him. On the left side of the chest, a symbol burned into being. A dragon and a human hand clasped together in partnership, rendered in silver thread that seemed to glow with its own light. The Corinthian fleet has entered this system, Brian called out from where he monitored a holographic display. 300 warships. They're demanding we release you immediately and submit to arbitration for threatening a sovereign power. Tyler felt anger surge through the bond. Thousands of dragons responding to the threat, their rage building like a storm about to break. He also felt his own fury rising. 23 years of injustice crystallizing into cold resolve. Open a communication channel, Tyler said. His voice carried authority it had never possessed before. Not borrowed authority but something that came from deep inside, from the flame now burning in his chest. Let's teach the Corinthian Empire what happens when you imprison the wrong human. The central dragon's rumble might have been laughter, a sound like mountains moving. Finally. We have been patient for so long. It will feel good to remind the galaxy why dragons are feared. Tyler walked toward what passed for a bridge, feeling his grandmother's presence like a warm hand on his shoulder. He could sense her approval across time and death, could feel her pride in the choice he'd made. Time to fix another broken thing. This time he had the proper tools for the job. The Corinthian battle fleet filled the view screen like a swarm of angry insects. 300 warships arranged in perfect military formation, their weapons powered up and ready to fire. Each ship bristled with enough firepower to level a city. Together they carried enough destructive force to turn a planet into glowing dust. The Corinthians had brought their heaviest hitters, clearly intending to make a statement. Against them, the dragon fleet waited in what looked like complete chaos. Ships drifted at odd angles, seemingly random positions with no clear formation. But Tyler could feel through the bond that it wasn't chaos at all. It was something far more sophisticated than human military tactics. Each dragon ship was positioned exactly where it needed to be, responding to currents in space that Tyler could sense but not fully understand. Channel open, Brian reported from his station. A Corinthian admiral appeared on the main screen. He wore enough medals and ribbons to cover his entire chest plate. All four of his eyes were cold with the confidence of someone who'd never lost a fight. Unknown vessels, you are harboring a convicted criminal and have made unlawful threats against the Corinthian Empire, a recognized sovereign power under galactic law. Stand down immediately and surrender the human-designated prisoner 804, or face the full military response authorized under. I'm going to stop you right there, Tyler interrupted. He saw all four of the admiral's eyes widen in shock. Clearly nobody had ever cut off a Corinthian admiral mid-speech before. I'm Tyler Reed, flame-bearer of Earth, voice of the Dragon Treaty, and I'm about to make your situation very simple to understand. He felt the bond with the Dragon Fleet surge as they amplified his words, broadcasting them not just to the Corinthians but across every communication channel within 10 light-years. News networks, private ships, colony stations, everyone in range would hear this. 23 years ago, I was working as a survey technician in the Outer Rim. Just a regular guy doing geological surveys for the Colonial Resource Management Office. During a routine scan of an asteroid field in the Terran Reserve, I documented evidence of illegal Corinthian mining operations. Massive strip mining equipment or processors, the works. All of it in violation of 3 separate galactic accords that your empire signed. The admiral's scales started to pale but he kept his composure. Those are serious accusations that require. Which I can prove beyond any doubt. Tyler cut him off again. He nodded to Lisa, who transmitted data packets to every ship in the system and every nearby relay station. Those are my original survey logs, certified and time-stamped by official colonial systems. Independent analysis will show the Corinthian Empire has been strip mining Terran worlds for 2 decades, stealing resources worth trillions of credits. And all while your government prosecutes human colonies for minor regulatory violations. Silence fell across the channel. Tyler could feel attention focusing on this moment from across multiple star systems as the data spread. Newsrooms were already analyzing the files. Government officials were scrambling. The truth was out there now, impossible to bury again. Here's what's going to happen, Tyler said, keeping his voice steady and calm. First, the Corinthian Empire will immediately withdraw all operations from Terran Reserve territories. Every mining station, every processing facility, every ship. Gone within 30 days. Second, reparations will be paid, not to me personally, but to the human colonies you've been stealing from for 20 years. Third, every prisoner currently held in Station Block 7 will have their case reviewed by an independent tribunal within 60 days. Anyone imprisoned without proper trial or evidence gets released immediately. You think you can dictate terms to an empire that spans 200 star systems? The Admiral snarled. His professional mask was slipping, showing the anger underneath. No, Tyler said simply. I don't think I can dictate anything to your empire. But I know the dragons can. Behind him, the central elder dragon moved into view of the camera. Its massive form filled the screen, making the Admiral physically flinch backward. The Treaty of Flames is now active, the dragon said, its voice resonating through every speaker on every Corinthian ship. Under its terms, any violation of human sovereignty is considered an act of war against the dragon flight. The Corinthian Empire has violated this treaty for 23 years. We are being extraordinarily generous in offering these terms instead of responding as our laws would normally demand. You're bluffing, the Admiral said, but his voice shook. You can't possibly. Tyler felt a question pulse through the bond. The dragons were asking permission, waiting for his command. He gave it instinctively, barely needing to form the thought. What happened next was the most beautiful and terrifying thing Tyler had ever witnessed. The dragon fleet moved. Not in any formation a military academy would recognize, not following any tactical manual ever written. They moved like a storm given physical form, like a school of fish reacting to a predator, like a flock of starlings painting patterns across the sky. In 3 seconds they wove through the entire Corinthian formation. Massive living ships passed within meters of the warships, so close their displacement fields rocked every Corinthian vessel violently. Alarms would be screaming on every bridge. Pilots would be fighting to regain control. In 15 seconds, the dragons had threaded completely through the enemy fleet without touching a single ship. Then they reformed on the other side, surrounding the Corinthians in a perfect sphere. 300 warships trapped inside a cage made of ancient power. That was gentle, Tyler said into the stunned silence. A demonstration of restraint. The dragons could have turned your entire fleet into scrap metal and scattered atoms. They chose mercy because I asked them to. Because that's what humans do. We try peace first. We give people a chance to do the right thing. He leaned forward, looking directly into the camera, meeting the Admiral's eyes. But understand something very clearly. Humanity is done being pushed around. We're done being exploited by empires who think we're easy targets because we're young and fractured. The dragons have returned and we stand together now. As partners. As equals. The Admiral was silent. Tyler could see calculations happening behind those 4 eyes. The Admiral was counting ships, measuring odds, running combat simulations in his head, and reaching the same conclusion every time. His fleet didn't stand a chance. I will need to consult with my government, the Admiral finally said, his voice carefully neutral. You have exactly 2 hours, Tyler replied. After that, we start releasing all the survey data to every news network in the galaxy. We'll include detailed analysis of exactly how much the Corinthian Empire has stolen from human colonies. I'm curious to see how your trading partners react when they realize you've been violating treaties. Makes them wonder what other agreements you might be breaking. The channel closed. Tyler let out a long breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. His hands were shaking and he shoved them in his pockets to hide it. The coat's fabric felt warm and reassuring against his skin. Well done, the central dragon rumbled with clear approval. You had the power to demand their complete destruction. You could have ordered us to make an example that would terrify the galaxy for generations. You chose leverage and diplomacy instead. Very human. Very wise. Will they actually comply? Lisa asked, though she was smiling like she already knew the answer. Tyler felt it through the bond. Through the connection to human consciousness scattered across dozens of colony worlds. People were watching. Earth was watching. News was spreading at light speed through every relay network. And for the first time in longer than anyone could remember, humans felt something they'd almost forgotten. Hope. Real, tangible hope that things could actually change. They'll comply, Tyler said with certainty. Because the alternative is becoming a pariah state. The Corinthian economy depends on galactic trade agreements and diplomatic relationships. We just gave them a way to save face while doing the right thing.